Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. As always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen are the pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video as there is a bonus pair in store. No trades to report on this week. Been very busy with elevating traders, which is fast approaching. So there hasn't been much time for me to be on the charts, but hopefully towards the end of September, early October, hopefully I can have a bit more time to be more active on the charts again. So unfortunately, nothing to report on. But in terms of price action, it is looking pretty interesting for next week, especially with some USD pairs, which we'll get to throughout the video. First things first, we'll take a look at the DXY, but if there is a particular pair you do want to see my analysis to, feel free to skip ahead using timestamps below. But if we jump over to the dollar, you can see we did have a bit of a move to the upside this week, which we saw as we approach this level here. We were talking about this level here last week. I said if we do hold into this level, see some rejection, I would anticipate some upside purely because dollar's been so bearish over the past couple months, really. So it's kind of due that retracement. I still do think dollar is likely to head lower. So this bullish move we're seeing, I do think it will form a top somewhere and the market will continue falling. I do think this is the longer term target and probably beyond that as well. But for now, we just looking around 99.6. But for now, we are pretty bullish. I do think more upside will be the likely move next week. However, I do feel like we'll put a top in, a swing high, and then continue our path. I'm looking at this area here around 102.250. I feel like that's a really nice area for some shorts to come into play, or longs in euro, longs in pound, depending what pair you're looking at, and possibly another swing to the downside. We've been very consistent with these lower lows and lower highs. I'm looking for that to continue as we come back to retest some structure. So hopefully a bit more upside to start the week off, and maybe midweek or whenever we get to that area, start looking to see some signs of reversals and some shorts coming back into for the dollar. So some weakness for the dollar, and then of course expecting some of the other USD pairs to be pushing up. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for the DXY for next week. In terms of euro, so euro I'm looking for the inverse pretty much. I'm looking for buys for this one. I do think there's still more upside for Euro USD. My target's around 1.125. This high here is where I do see Euro USD heading towards. We've been pretty consistent with these higher lows here, and I do think the market is likely to continue that. And all I'm looking for is that next higher low. We just put a new high and looking for that next higher low to take us back to that 1.125 level. So that's the swing. That's the idea I have with Euro. I've marked out a few levels where that swing low could potentially form. Retesting this area around 1.103, this area around 1.1, pretty much on the dot, and this area around 1.094, 400, 500. So those are the areas I'll be focusing on next week for Euro. We're already just about coming to this area, but like I said, I do think dollar has a bit more upside in it still. So I want to be very picky about this area. My preferred areas is definitely 1.00 and 1.09, although this could be a level that does push price higher. So I'll see, what type of price action we can get there early next week. But more realistically, these are the areas which I want to be buying from. 1.00 and 1.09500, because it corresponds with the dollar pretty well. These are some nice levels to work with, especially this one on the daily chart. It lines up with a really nice level. And of course, if we do continue to the downside for the dollar, the euro most likely will continue to the upside as well. And targets back at the swing high make a lot of sense, or the 1.125 area on the daily chart as well. So very bullish on euro. Seeing some nice downside this week, which again I'm looking at as purely retracement for this lovely move to the upside. I believe if I do draw up the Fibonacci from the low to the high, so we've got the 50%, which just about lines up with that level there. And we've got the 0.618, which lines up with that area there as well. So that adds a bit more confidence to these two particular levels. And if USD does see a bit more strength, we probably will break through the first area and start testing these areas here. So we'll see how things develop. But the idea is looking for that higher low. Keep an eye on all three levels, because either one of them could push price bullish again. But in terms of confluence, I do prefer these areas. So we'll see how price develops, but we're looking for that higher low to take price back to the swing high next week for Euro. Okay, so over to USD JPY. So USD JPY does look like we're starting to break to the upside here. Momentum shifting. We've been moving in this descending channel quite well. It's been pretty corrective, but we've seen a lot of lower lows and lower highs and somewhat nice bearish momentum. I was looking for price to spill over this week back into the prior low, but unfortunately we didn't manage to do that, didn't have enough momentum to see that happen. Now it looks like the buyers are taking control. I've had a look at quite a few yen pairs and it does look like they're slowly turning bullish, and we're seeing some signs of that on dollar yen as well. So potentially price is gearing up for a move back to that swing high around 149.500, just below 150. If that's the case, then I want to see a strong break of 146.483 and look for opportunities above that, because a break of this descending channel normally means that we're going to see a big bullish move, and a break of that resistance will really put that into fruition, and that will leave us a nice level to actually buy from, because at the moment we'll be buying right back into resistance, which isn't the best place to do that. So for dollar yen, it does look like we're gearing up for a big move. I'm seeing the same signs across multiple yen pairs, which will look as we go throughout the analysis. But yeah, I really want to see a break of 146.500, and then above that for a retest could be some nice opportunities, probably more intraday as well, looking at the hourly or maybe even below for some entries. But dollar yen looking for some upside next week. Potentially we're gearing up for a move back to 150 since we failed to see the continuation back to the swing low. If you do break resistance there, 146.400, we'll be looking at a push back to 150 for next week. Okay, so next up we've got dollar CAD. So dollar CAD, I'm looking for a lot more downside with this one, another dollar pair. Again, if you do look at the high time frames, particularly the weekly, particularly the monthly as well, we've got a massive range. The market's rejected the high, so basically longer term, we're looking for a push back into the lower end of the range. Actually, let me get that to this area here. Looking at test there, a bit of a fake out here. So around 1.323 is what I'm looking for price to end up at. Recently, we've broken through some really nice support around here, which of course will be flipped as resistance. And basically the opportunity we were talking about last week was the retest of this same level to look for shorts. Unfortunately, haven't really seen that happen. We have seen a bit of dollar strength, but it just hasn't been enough to get USD CAD to retrace. Looks like CAD has also been somewhat strong as well, which has kind of kept USD CAD moving sideways. I've talked about some brief areas of support here, which the market has found. But again, not enough juice to see a pullback yet. Although we could see that next week. Maybe if we do see that dollar strength I was talking about at the start of the video, hopefully that could be the catalyst to get price pushing to the upside, because I'm very bearish on USD CAD, but I do want to see a bullish move because we've been falling quite well for the past few weeks. The market's very overextended to the downside. Now's not the best time to be shorting, especially from a swing perspective. If you're day trading, scalping, you can get away with it, trading for a couple of hours, trading for the session, trading for the day. You can get away with that, but when the market's so stretched, you can't really be looking to swing, or you'll find it very difficult as the market does eventually have that bigger pullback. So looking for a push to 1.36, really big level of daily support, and was resistance as well not too long ago. So hopefully you can find a retest there. Again, not looking for anything crazy next week, just a swing back to the low looks great. Like I said, I do think we can go further, so leave positions to continue, trade a stop loss. That's up to you how you want to manage it. But something like this is really attractive next week for dollar CAD. Just hope we can get that retracement in. So that is the plan I'm looking at for USD CAD going into next week. Okay, so over to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound, I'm actually pretty bearish on this one. I was favoring some shorts last week. I said a retest of this area would be a nice place to sell from. As we can see, really strong support, was resistance there as well. I did say if we can pull back, retest that area, this will be a nice place to short, try and catch that next lower high. One over there, second over there, third, looking for the fourth, so on and so forth to continue the move back to the low. Unfortunately, Euro Pound was just very bearish this week, so unfortunately the market didn't have that pullback to get us the shorts and just kept falling. But I do think eventually we'll see the pullback. Reason being, the market is really stretched and we're now approaching major support. So I do think we will see a bounce, and potentially buys might be a good play at the start of the week. I'm not really interested in the buys, and I'll show you why in a moment. But we could probably see some nice buys off this low. Really big reaction here. We're coming back there again. Market's quite overstretched. There's a good chance we can see a bit of a pop to the upside. But I do think this floor is going to break at some point, because looking at the high time frames, particularly the monthly and how this month's candle closed, really big piercing way to the upside. And as you can see, just closed pretty much as a doji. of a small bearish candle there as well. So that tells me that momentum is still very much for the bears, and this wick here is probably just a big fake out, taking out some of the highs there on the previous months, and I'll be expecting the market to continue the bearish move back into this level here of support. So I still do see a lot more downside for euro pound in the higher time frames. So that tells me that this support will probably break eventually. I do think we can have a bounce first, but once we do see that bounce, I'll be looking for a lower high, probably at this area here, around 0.845, and then looking for my continuations, at least back into the low, and then we'll see what we can do on a break. But for now, that is the opportunity I have with euro pound. Like I said, there could be some nice buys to start the week off, but I'm going to stay with the shorts because that's where my higher time frame bias is. So I'll just keep looking to take short opportunities. But buys look good to start the week off, but I do think eventually we'll see a big sell. So that's the plan I have next week with euro pound. Okay, so over to Aussie dollar. So another dollar pair. Like I said, I'm still expecting a bit more strength with the USD, but again, I'm looking for that just to be a retracement for longer term weakness in the dollar to continue. So with that being said, I do think Aussie dollar can see some downside, but I do expect us to find that floor, find that new swing low, higher low, and continue in its bullish path. We've seen a lot of momentum over the past few days, few weeks here, and now we're kind of struggling at resistance. So I do think, again, similar to Euro USD, I do think the market's just having a breather before it does continue to the upside. I do have targets around the 0.68600, area. I do think Aussie dollar is longer term making a move towards. But at the moment, we're really struggling at this high here. We've left quite a few wicks down the daily chart, strong bearish engulfing candle. So I do think that early next week, we'll probably see some downside for Aussie dollar, which fits the bias pretty well. But longer term, I do see the bias taking back control. So I'm looking at a retest of this area around 0.67 or a retest of this area around 0.665 as areas which I'll be interested in buying Aussie dollar from. So that is where my focus will lie next week. I really do like these two levels. They were prior resistance very, very well. Haven't really been acting as support since. So I feel like the buys, if they are gonna take price higher, this will probably be the place to do it. There's some nice confluence around them, and if we can see that drop, I do like the retest of that level. And even just to swing back to this area here makes a lot of sense. We don't necessarily have to look for the extended target, because of course there is a world where we do get back to the high and price rolls back over. So it would be very, very sensible to take profit there, or at least manage the trade somehow according to your plan. So with Aussie dollar, I do see more upside. Very similar opportunity to how I see rest of the yen pairs, a bit of a pullback and then continuation. Looking at 0.67, 0.665 as areas to buy from, and long term looking for a push into 0.686 next week for Aussie dollar. Okay, so up next we've got NZD CAD. So NZD CAD, I'm looking at more upside. That was the bias coming into the week. If we broke through 0.84, and that's exactly what we did. We did that kind of midweek. Was it Tuesday, Wednesday? Yeah, around Wednesday we did see a nice break. Although we are leaving a lot of wicks to the upside, the key thing for me is that we are closing above the 0.84. Previously, market has respected this area very well. A lot of wicks, brief resistance there as well. Last time we had a solid break of this. This is the high we got to. This is our swing high. If we zoom out and look at the structure as well, we've got lovely low down there, high, higher low, higher high, again another higher low. So again, we're looking for potentially a higher high or price to at least come back and retest that resistance, and then we'll go from there. So there is somewhat of a bullish structure at play, and now we're trading above major resistance as well, which of course will be now acting as support. I do think there's a great chance that NZD CAD does push higher, as long as we don't see price break back below 0.84. So that would definitely put a spanner in the works if that was the case. But for now, looks like price is still maintaining this bullish structure in the 4 hour. High, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, and again we're looking for that higher low. This is the retest, which could come pretty early next week, and then looking for the continuation back to 0.85. And again, like I said, if it is going to be a higher high, we'll probably see price break through that point as well. But in terms of a solid target, aiming for that area there around 0.85, big psychological level, makes a lot of sense as well. Even a pushback to the swing high there could be a nice trade there as well in itself. But I'm expecting a pushback to 0.85 next week for NZD CAD, as long as we stay above 0.84. I'm liking the price action, a lot of momentum in that breakout. So the buy opportunity is looking pretty good in my book. So yeah, NZD CAD expecting more upside. Keep an eye out for a push to 0.85 for next week. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So pound NZD expecting a lot more downside for this one. We did see a nice break of these lows this week, which is what we were looking for. Now price is still very consistent with these lower highs. So as long as we keep up this structure, I expect price to keep printing these lower highs. So I'm looking for the next one. I've got a lovely area here of price support, which we broke through this week, which now of course will be resistance. We haven't really had the retest yet. So that's what I'm looking for price to get into. Kind of got a bit of a trend line confidence there as well, connecting the prior lower highs. So this is really where I'm looking to position myself short on a retest and look to ride pound NZD to the downside. We've rejected a really big swing point, which we mentioned a few weeks now, back at that COVID high. We came back in, rejected it very well. So in my book, there is a lot of downside potential for pound NZD. I've also marked out some areas of support where we probably want to keep an eye out for, take partials at, or take profits at, to manage the trade on the way down, because these are areas which we could see some upside from. Not quite at that area just yet, around 2.09600, but I do expect us to eventually break. Maybe from there we do bounce up and get that short opportunity. We'll have to wait and see. All I can say is now that I'm very bearish, expecting a lot more downside for pound NZD. I'm expecting a push at 2.086 and 2.06 as well in the future. But for now, hopefully you can get a retest. I was looking at USD, which was a similar opportunity as pound NZD, but USD kind of left me in the dust a little bit with a really, really big move. Pound NZD, the opportunity is still very much alive. So hopefully you can get a retest of this 2.110 area. Look for some shorts, looking for a push into 2.095 and then 2.086 at least for next week. Okay, so over to CAD Yen. So CAD Yen, I'm bullish bias going into next week. Like I said, I've had a look at quite a few yen pairs, or pretty much all the yen pairs that I look to trade anyway. And they do look slightly bullish, and I do feel like we will see more upside for the next week or two for the yen pairs in general. CAD Yen breaking to the upside outside this range is a big statement, and I do think that will be the catalyst which does get CAD Yen moving again to the upside. Although we did have a fake out here as well, so there's a chance that this could be a fake out too. In fact, as long as we stay above this level of resistance now acting as support, which is around 107,800, as long as we stay above this area, I would expect more upside for CAD Yen. Of course, if you break back inside the range, things get complicated and I wouldn't touch it. But right now, the opportunity I'm after is a retest and some continuations back to 110, which was actually the level I was looking to short CAD Yen from when we had this big bullish move here. I was hoping price could push a little bit higher, tag 110, and then I can look to sell it. But unfortunately, that never happened. So I'm now looking to trade it towards 110. And if this breakout is for sure, and we're not going to trade back inside the range, I'll be looking for the retest for that higher low to now use that resistance as support and continue price to 110. So yeah, upside is my favored bias for CAD Yen. If this is a breakout, let's look for the retest and find some opportunities, some entries on the retest of that level, and then I'll be expecting a push back into 110 for next week. Okay, so over to pound USD. So pound USD bullish bias as well with this one longer term. It's a very similar opportunity to Euro USD, as we've had a lovely move to the upside here. And I'm looking at this bearish move as a retracement as the market corrects itself. And then I'm looking to buy it around the 1.305 area. Again, looking at the daily chart, we've had some really nice bullish swings in recent times here. And all I'm looking for pound USD to do is just print another one. And I do have some targets around the 1.33 area, which if I go to the weekly, you can see was a really strong resistance. I've simply just dragged that area across. We've broken through this high here as well. So the market's been extremely bullish. I do think we can see a correction and then see a continuation as well. So again, if USD does see a bit of strength to start the week, that could help pound USD keep falling. I've got a lovely high over here, which I'm looking for the retest of. And then I'll be looking for my entries for that next higher low, and then hopefully try and swing it back to 1.33, or at least swing it back to the high here. 1.33 is only just above us, so a swing back to the high is pretty much still a phenomenal trade. And if we can get there, there's probably a good chance we push to 1.33 anyway, but at least targeting that high makes a lot of sense. So yeah, pound USD still very bullish, bias on. I'm expecting USD keep falling, so that should help pound USD push up as well. I'm looking at this bearish move as a correction, which is much needed because pound USD has been really flying. So this correction is kind of long awaited. Now that it's here, let's see if we can see a bit more downside. Test 1.305. Then I'm looking for my entries to take it back to the swing high, and hopefully 1.33 for next week. Okay, so next up we've got pound CAD. So pound CAD, we have seen some downside, and that's what we were looking for coming into the week. Looking for price to react with 1.785, since that is a very big level on the higher time frames, particularly the weekly, monthly level. Probably actually monthly, probably see it a bit more clearer. So as you can see, a really sturdy level here of resistance. This was a bit of a fake out there, which I highlighted, but more or less the market has really respected this area. And as you can see, we're back in that same level again. And August, the monthly candle for August closed there pretty much as a doji, showing again momentum is failing to push past, and we're really struggling here. So I do think pound CAD can see some downside, as it is already doing. And I have marked out this high here as well as a nice place for a buy as well, because we still do have this uptrend. I do expect to see a bounce when we approach this area. Sturdy trend line confluence, 1, 2, 3, looking for a fourth, and of course coming back to retest that high, which now will be acting as support. So I'm not necessarily expecting the trend to continue necessarily and break the highs and continue to do some new highs. Could do, of course, but I'm well aware that that is a big level, and possibly maybe price has met its match and is getting ready to reverse. But as a buyer of the market, as we do push back into this area, we definitely could catch a reaction, but it may be short-lived, as price might want to reverse, maybe because the monthly time frame is getting ready for a big move down. That could be a possibility. So if you do catch a buy, looking at a push back into structure, even back to 1.772, which is this area here, I feel like could be a great trade. Even a push back to the high could be a great trade, of course. Less likely for price to get there, but I do think there's a good chance to catch a buy as we do approach this area and see that reaction for a higher low, which could, of course, give us a new high as well. But again, that's just more me speculating. And if that's the case, you want to trail a stop loss anyway, see how far you can take it. But if you're looking for a good target with a good risk reward, you can probably easily get a 1 to 2, 1 to 3 back into an area like this. So I'll keep an eye for something like that for pound CAD around the 1.76 mark going into next week. Okay, so over to pound yen. So pound yen, another yen pair. This one has been pretty sideways, but I do expect us to break higher. We are consolidating, so in theory, we're kind of 50-50 which way we could break out. But looking at how some of these monthly candles have closed with massive wicks to the downside, I do expect to see a bit of a push to the upside for September. And because price has had such a big rejection on the low time frames as well, and has had such a tough time of forming that lower high to continue, I'm kind of expecting us to break to the upside anyway. Of course, if the market does break to the downside, then I will look to change that bias and look for some sells. I'm not going to be ignorant to not identify any potential sell opportunities. If we do see a nice break to the downside, of course I'll be all over that, but right now the probability is probably higher that we do break to the upside, which again could give us some really nice buy opportunities on the retest once we get a solid breakout. And of course I'll be looking at push to 196, because again, similar to CAD yen, which we just covered, this was an area which I was looking to short from if we were to have a really big pullback, and now I'm looking to take advantage of the move towards 96, which then could be a nice place to sell at some later date in a couple of weeks time when we get there. But for now, I'm interested in the buys of pound yen if we do see a confident break to the upside above 192, and then looking for the retest to take it back into 196, and that will be the play for next week for pound yen. Okay, so up next we've got gold. So gold I'm still very bullish on. Higher time frames are still very bullish. We just had a nice monthly candle closure to the upside. Momentum still looks intact to me. Weekly chart, okay, we are slowing down a little bit, but we're still pushing to the upside, still printing higher highs and higher lows. So in my book, I'm always going to be looking for buy opportunities in this scenario. I do think gold is going to push higher anyway. We are trading at all-time highs and struggling to break through a little bit. You can see we had quite a few attempts to try and break through 25.30, failing quite miserably actually. But if we were to break through that next week, that just becomes a really nice level for a retest for a buy. Just exactly how this was a really nice place for a buy after we respected this area a few times. 1, 2, 3, solid break, retest, really nice buy opportunity there as well. So I'm looking for the exact same thing. And even if we don't get the break straight away and we do come back to retest 24.80 like we did over here, again, I do think that would be a nice place for a buy. So I'm looking at two opportunities here for gold, 24.80, and then I'm looking at 25.30. I mean, whichever comes first really may suddenly be very bullish for gold next week, and we just go and break through 25.30 and not get the retest here. If that's the case, then of course I'll keep my eye on this opportunity. But if you were to push down back to 24.80, we'll see what we can do. I'm pretty much bullish as long as price stays above 24.80. If we break below, again, I'm not necessarily expecting the market to suddenly sell off, but I won't be so interested in the buys anymore. So these are the setups I'm looking at for buys: 24.80 longs, 25.30 longs. I've marked up a couple of psychological levels we can keep an eye out for, because again, we're at all-time highs. We can't really look to the left and spot structure to work with. We've just got these psych levels to work with here. So 25.50, that's the next one we're looking at, and then above that 2600 as well. So that is the plan I have next week for gold. Okay, so over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, we are very sideways still. We're just moving along in this descending channel. We're trading in the middle of it as well, so I don't want to speculate on price movement too much, because this is where the most fluctuation, the most chaos will happen. At least at the edges, we can be a bit more bit more confident with our bias, especially when we see big wicks and big rejection like this. We know probability is with us in terms of either a breakout or for price to reject that area. Same with the top. So I'm looking for Bitcoin to come back into the lows here and then analyze price in a bit more detail, see how prices are reacting, and then we can look at some opportunities. Or if price is breaking through and we're looking at some breakouts to the downside or breakouts to the upside. Either which way, this is where I want price to be before I start to look for opportunities. Dropping down to the 4 hour, there's not much going on either as well. Maybe how price is looking, looks like it might break lower, but again, I'm not going to do anything with price until we get back down to around 54k or back up to around 68k there as well. And likewise, if you do get the breakout, then we can talk about some shorts and some targets where price could be moving. But right now, still comfortably in the range. And if you're looking for opportunities, some entries, these are the areas where you want to be finding your entries on the daily chart. So not much to report on this week for Bitcoin. Okay, so last but not least, we've got Euro Aussie. So Euro Aussie as our bonus pair. I'm looking for more downside. Last week, Euro NZD was our bonus pair. But unfortunately, that one had a really aggressive sell-off and hit the target we were looking for, but it just didn't give me the opportunity to get into the market. So that one kind of left without me. But Euro Aussie also looking pretty bearish. Also had a nice swing to the downside, but it just wasn't as bearish as Euro NZD. And of course, it's still left behind a really nice level of support. Should we come back and retest it, which looks like there's a chance of us seeing that. We've had a bit of a push to the upside as we closed out for Friday. So if that momentum can continue at the start of the next week, that would be really, really much appreciated. And then I'll be looking for the market to continue south. You can see we do have these prior lower highs the market has created, and all I'm looking to do is try and catch the next one and look to get entries in this area, next lower high, and shorts around 1.618. There's a pretty big daily low around here. As you can see, massive level of support. That's where I'm looking to take price into. Again, if we see a pull back into that area, this swing low will be a really nice target as well. I do expect us to go a lot further due to my analysis on the higher time frames. But if you can get a swing back into the low there, that's looking like a phenomenal trade. Again, that could be a really big risk reward in itself. With me, I will be trading a stop loss. I won't really have a finite target. So I'll just be seeing how far I can take it. But there's a big level here, so that could be an interesting place to take partials, or at least put a take profit at, same with this low here as well. But Euro Aussie being pretty consistent with the low lows and lower highs, big rejection to the upside. As you can see with this wick here, massive rejection as we come into the high. I do expect us just to keep falling, eventually back to this low and probably this low as well. But again, we'll speak on that at a later date. For now, looking for a push into 1.618. But first, let's see if we can get a pullback into around 1.645, and then hopefully some shorts some point next week. So that does bring us to the end of the analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have found it useful, please be sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you do hit the bell if you haven't done so already, so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Make sure you check out the Discord channel for Elevating Traders, completely free to join. It is in the description below. Make sure you have at it. Discount opportunities will be available in that Discord closer to launch date, so make sure you check it out. But guys, I hope you have had a great weekend, or the weekend's only just started. Hope you will have a great weekend, and I will catch you all next week, so stay tuned.